What's up everyone, I'm Twisted and today I bring you a different kind of video than usual. Fate's Voyage Beyond has just been released and with it we got the second part of Nilah's adventure through Runeterra. However, this journey has been a bit controversial, as some people have expressed a particular dislike toward the story presented and Nilah herself. So after adding some fuel to the fire with this tweet, I wanna elaborate on what I actually meant. First, I wanna say that, keeping in mind that Legends of Runeterra is a card game, what they tried to do with the Darkin Saga and Fate's Voyage is very commendable. The team tried to tell stories that tied multiple champions together and progressed as more expansions were released. I think on paper we can all agree that this isn't a bad idea. If you think about it, most champion cards, their artworks and flavors aren't really connected. There are some exceptions like Leona and Diana, Nasus and Renekton, Cyan and Galio, or even most recently Nidalee and Niku. These small storylines aren't really pushing the lore forward, but that's okay. These are still a way for us to see our favorite champions in the universe we love, and even the other champion cards that also don't expand much in terms of lore, at least provide us with a small window into what their life is like. However, I think we can agree that, once in a while, a new story that does push the narrative forward is also important. Obviously, the Darkin Saga and Fate's Voyage have issues. Some of these issues derive from the inherent limitations of the medium where they are presented, which is a card game. This means that the story is told through what are basically slideshows and some quotes. A lot of details have to be left out, happen off screen, or be up to interpretation. These are, in my opinion, fair criticisms. However, I don't necessarily think that the team should discard this approach in favor of only small and more manageable narratives. In fact, I think it would be better if we got more content. In addition to card artworks, flavors and quotes, we should get more narrative, be it in the form of stories, cinematics or any other experiences the team could offer outside or inside the game to complement the cards. I know the current situation isn't the best right now, with LOR not having as many resources as it used to and League's lore being in a questionable state. With this being said, I still think that the Darkin Saga and Fate's Voyage were risks worth taking, and I hope the team keeps learning and improving as more expansions come out. To reiterate, the idea of telling bigger stories is not bad, but LOR needs the support of other mediums of storytelling to really make these stories satisfying. Now I wanna shift the focus to Nilah, as it seems that despite the problems I just mentioned, Nilah has been a focal point of criticism of Fate's Voyage ever since the first cards of the set were revealed. As I said, I don't think the idea of an expanding story connecting multiple champions was bad, and I also don't think Nilah was a bad choice for a protagonist. As I see it, the criticism surrounding Nilah can be boiled down into the following points. She is not strong enough to defeat Volibear or Mordekaiser. She has no real motivation to do what she's doing. She shouldn't be involved in plots that don't revolve around her character. Nilah's story had no build-up. Let's start with her capabilities. As stated in her Champion Insights post, Nilah channels the power of a demon of joy to slay mythical beasts and defeat her enemies. Nilah practices a strict code of rite and ritual that gives her power over Ashlash, a member of the Ten, the oldest and most powerful demons in existence. In the same article, her writer at the time, Jared Rosen, adds, "This is one of the most powerful women on the planet." Her Champion Insights also tells us that once she got her powers, she started putting down demigods and giant dragons. From her bio, we learn that she defeated Grandmother Viper, the invincible progenitor of all Camovoran dragons, Imago, demon of change, and Scourge of the Carnelian Valley, the mad demigod Nabavelicus, perpetrator of countless atrocities. And from her story, we learn she also defeated a couple of sea monsters while in Bilgewater. Nilah wields the power of one of the 10 most powerful demons in Runeterra, and has defeated great demons, beasts, and demigods. She is more than capable of being a worthy opponent for the likes of Volibear and Mordekaiser. I understand that she's a new champion, and a lot of her feats happen in only a line or two, but one, that doesn't mean they didn't happen, and two, that's more of an issue with League's lore as a whole, not with Nilah specifically. Still, I agree, this is a valid criticism. Her motivation. I've seen some people saying that she's doing all of this just because she can, without an actual motive, which is not the case. From her bio, we learn that her dream when she was young was to become a hero of legend. This is reinforced in her Champion Insights. She's an epic, monster-slaying hero who's building out her own legend day by day. Very much like a hero from the Ramayana, she has given up everything to to this incredible power and uses it to protect the world from ancient threats that have been long thought invincible. Nilah's goal is to do good wherever she goes, expanding the epic tale of her life, and to keep up with her ritual prayers so she stays in full control of Ashlesh. Her biography ends with facing the mythological villains of Runeterra with unerring glee. She will challenge the end itself if it means she can protect those who cannot protect themselves. As you can see, her motivations aren't complex. In fact, they are quite simple. She's powerful and she wants to use her power to do good and be remembered as a hero. Facing Runeterra's most powerful threats is what she's all about. Yes, we have a lot of heroes on the roster, but few are on the same level as Nilah. Alright, so we know that Nilah is really strong, and we know that the whole point of her character is to be a hero who faces great threats. So, why Volibear and why Mordekaiser? Well, part of the answer lies in the fact that the team developed the gameplay of these characters and planned to release them around the same time, and from their perspective, these were good candidates to be tied together narrative-wise and gameplay-wise. And if you really think about it, which champions would even face Volibear? Out of all the Freljordian champions, only 2 are powerful enough to face him, and the third one might just be Nunu. Volibear is quite displeased with the current Freljordian civilization, and he wants to bring it back to its roots, which may or may not include a lot of bloodshed in the process. From his biography, cultivating a deep hatred of civilization and the weakness it brought with it, he now fights to return to the old ways, when the land was untamed and blood spilled freely. So why not have him face an opponent whose whole point is protecting those who can't protect themselves, and is actually strong enough to face him? And to those who are frustrated with her easily defeating Volibear, where did you learn that? How do you know that happened? We do not know what happened between her and Volibear. What we know is that Nilah survived bruised and bleeding. As for Mordekaiser, he's in his realm. Nilah came to Noxus looking for his armor. We don't exactly know what happened, but we for sure did not see her anywhere near the Iron Revenant himself. And again, I know the lack of details is frustrating, as I have mentioned in the beginning, but that's a problem with the structure and median of the story, not a problem with the characters. And for those saying that facing Mordekaiser is the whole point of Rel's character, yes, she was being trained to be used as a weapon against Mordekaiser, but she never finished that training, and even if she did, it's not certain that she would be enough to defeat him. He's a powerful undead warlord after all. His armor is made of metal, but his soul isn't. And if you need further proof, here's Jared Rosen again.
Can Rel actually beat Mordekaiser?
It is unclear. So Rel was specifically created to fight Mordekaiser. Like, she was trained, and these experiments were done her to fight Mordekaiser specifically. That was never completed. It is unclear if Rel even knows who Mordekaiser is. She could probably beat him one time, I would assume. But it wouldn't be able to destroy his spiritual form. It would be able to destroy his physical form. I think that if Rel continued to hone her powers, she would be able to stop him over and over again. She cannot destroy his spiritual essence, though. That's the big problem, is she can stop him physically, and then he'll just come back again because he cannot die.
Similar to Volibear, there isn't really a Noxian champion with both the motivations and the powers to face Mordekaiser. Face, not defeat, an important distinction. Obviously, there's LeBlanc, but she doesn't have a primordial demon on her leash. At least I hope she doesn't. And since we never even see Nilah physically close to Mordekaiser, I don't think Nilah traveling to Noxus looking for his armor is that bad of an idea. The various plotlines across Runeterra have one thing in common. They are happening in Runeterra. Did Braum, Yasuo or Ahri need to be added to the Rune King game? Not really, but I'm still glad they were, because we got to see them interacting with each other as well as other champions, and we saw a side of them that we might have never seen otherwise. Yes, I did hate when some champions were recruited as Sentinels of Light for no reason but to sell skins, but the idea of champions meeting, befriending or fighting each other shouldn't be seen as a bad idea. There's a reason we get excited over champion interactions in-game. We love to see the various characters from different parts of Runeterra interacting. If Freljord's stories were all self-contained, if the Winter's Claw never raided Demacia, if Salas never traveled to the Freljord, if Nilah never faced Volibear, what would be the point of Freljord sharing the same world as the rest of the other regions? Finally, let me address the last point, which to me is the most acceptable form of criticism to an extent. As I said, Nilah is a very recent champion. Her only lore before Legends of Runeterra comes from her biography, her champion insights, her call story, and her quotes. So when she's suddenly facing off against well-established, powerful League characters, it feels undeserved, unearned. and I agree to an extent. If we had more stories and more build-up to her character, these confrontations would have been more satisfying. This again goes back to my point that these expansions should be complemented with actual written stories, but keeping in mind that we aren't getting actual lore for a while and that LOR has its limitations, the way I see it is that Fate's Voyage is the moment when we can actually see Nilah proving herself as a character, trying to fight these powerful champions and showing to us as readers that she is on the same level as them. Again, seeing her actually fighting them would be great, and more narrative in general would really help, but is that the fault of Nilah's character? Not really. My point here is not to say that Fate's Voyage is perfect. It isn't. My point here is to say that it's not the fault of the team having picked the champions they picked. And before ending this video, there's something else I wanna mention. Wikipedia describes Mary Sue as a character archetype in fiction, usually a young woman who is often portrayed as inexplicably competent across all domains, gifted with unique talents or powers, liked or respected by most other characters, unrealistically free of weaknesses, extremely attractive, innately virtuous, and or generally lacking meaningful character flaws. And I don't really think this applies to Nilah at all. Yes, she's very competent at what she does, and personally I do find her attractive, but her talents weren't gifted. They came at a great cost. All memories and proof that she ever existed disappeared from the world, alongside her emotional spectrum, leaving joy as the only emotion she feels. She is flawed as she is impulsive and brash, and she can be single-minded at times. She is not free of weakness as she has to keep reading books or reciting prayers to make sure that she doesn't lose control over Ashlesh. Do we have a ton of lore that explores her character in depth? No, but again, that's an issue with the lore of League, not with Nilah specifically. And I know a lot of people understand this and don't actually dislike Nilah as a character or her involvement in the story. They just wish there had been more build-up to it. However, some people do really dislike Nilah and her being the protagonist of the story, and I think this specific hatred toward her comes mostly from people who never actually cared about the character and formed their opinions without reading the lore, and also probably some internalized misogyny. Nilah is a great character, an unique addition to the roster, and exactly the type of character we need to face champions like the Volibear. I used Pantheon as a comparison here because both he and Nilah are on a similar plane in terms of strength. She confirms it and her writer does as well. If Pantheon came out today and he defeated Aatrox, would this specific group of people be upset or would they think it's okay? I'm obviously implying that there is some sexism involved in some of the comments I've seen, and while I know this might just be a loud minority, I think this is still a discussion worth having. These people do exist after all. I'm not going to pretend to be super well versed on the topic, I'm not, but there's a history of both female and non-white characters not getting the recognition they deserve. Nilah, being a powerful woman of color, does make her a target for certain groups of people, and I think that's at least important to keep in mind when discussing criticism online around her character. Again, this was my opinion, and you are entitled to yours. I just ask that you please be respectful, and if you're actually interested in the topic, to do some research and reach your own conclusions. There are a bunch of characters I don't care about. The league's roster is huge, and not every champion is going to be a champion for me, and that's perfectly fine, and I hope you keep that in mind as well. Thank you, and I'll see you guys in the next video.